Under the question of how lethal is the first love, I saw my boyfriend's answer. It's so lethal. So I proposed to her sister because I wanted to protect her in the name of my family. I'm that sister, but I'm not as sad as I imagined, because the highest praise answer under this question is written by me. I also have a secret to tell. The doorbell rang. At the door is my drunken boyfriend and fiancé. He proposed to me last week, and I said yes. At this moment, his eyes were red and he was full of wine. It looked like he had cried, and his brother helped him in. Sister-in-law, Antonio Gunther, he just felt that it was not easy to marry you, so he cried with excitement, and drank too much, when he was happy. Okay, thank you for sending him back. As soon as the door closed, Antonio Gunther grabbed me and pulled me into his arms. I can finally be a family with you. After helping him to the couch and lying down, I noticed that his phone kept popping up with likes and comments. I unlocked it with his fingerprints, found that he answered a question on Jihu, on how lethal the first love is. He replied, "It's too lethal." At the beginning, I chased her sister, just to be able to meet her justifiably, and to call her a sister. Now her sister loves me very much, and is very gentle with me, but I don't love her very much. Or rather, I don't know if I love her or not. My first love will always be her sister in my heart, and no one can replace her. When I proposed to her sister, I wanted to protect her in the name of my family. I remembered the first time I took him to meet his sister. I hadn't introduced my sister to him yet, but he said, "Hello sister." I didn't pay much attention at the time. Now think about my sister's surprise and stunned, and Antonio Gunther's meaningful expression. The atmosphere was so ambiguous that it was the extreme. Actually, my sister Daphne Layton is not my real sister, she is my stepmother's daughter. She came to my house when I was in high school, a year older than me. Dad loved her. My stepmother is spoiled, and she fights with me everywhere with these Daphne Layton, and she also steals my father's love for me, and we will have conflicts whenever we are at home. It was only when we grew up that our relationship eased, and we were very harmonious on the surface, but in fact we still had a hard time secretly competing. Now it seems that she has completely won over me. I picked up the man she used to want, but this man still has a deep affection for him, and regards her as her first love. I suddenly remembered the moments that Antonio Gunther posted when he successfully proposed. "I will become your family and always protect you." My sister is still commenting at the bottom, "Congratulations." Looking at this answer again, I realize that there is still this meaning. 90% of it is written about how he couldn't let go of his sister after he broke up, and when he followed his sister once, he found out that she also had a sister, which was me. So he began to pursue me. I see. Antonio Gunther, who was on the sofa, suddenly grabbed my wrist and said, "Sister, don't leave me." I wrenched away from him, with a blank face. Antonio Gunther didn't know, and he wasn't the only one, who answered the question. The highest praise at the bottom of this question was written by me, and 20,000 likes. But I didn't care anymore after I answered casually. Actually, I should have woken up from my dream a long time ago. Antonio Gunther was not him. But I can't leave, I still have unfinished business. When Antonio Gunther woke up the next day, I made breakfast, but he didn't eat breakfast and hurriedly put on his shoes, and got the car keys to go out. I stopped him. "Didn't you say you were going to see the wedding dress in the morning?" He dropped a sentence. "It's not too late to see it in the afternoon, I have something to do now." No need to ask, I know who managed him. Many years ago, my sister got her wish, and married into a wealthy family. But her brother-in-law is not good to her. She has a lot of fun and violent tendencies, but she loves money and face, so she has been dragging it out and not getting divorced. She posted a circle of friends in the morning. "The hangover feels so bad that my head is going to explode." You don't have to think about it to know who Antonio Gunther cares about in such a hurry. In the afternoon, Antonio Gunther called me down, and told me to come down, pull open the car door, and my sister sits in the passenger seat. Antonio Gunther said, "I happened to meet your sister downstairs, and she said she had come to serve as your counselor." He had a small piece of his lip broken inexplicably. My sister's mouth is also very red, and the lipstick is faintly mottled. She said, "Yes, I'll pick and choose for you, and I have a good eye for that." I nodded faintly, "Okay, you're experienced." Seeing that my reaction was surprisingly weak, she added, I've always had a bit of motion sickness, and it would be better to sit in the co-pilot. You shouldn't mind, right? I haven't spoken yet. Antonio Gunther spoke first. What does it not matter? Where to sit is not to sit, right, Judith Jewel? Halfway through, my sister suddenly said, by the way, I'll share the good news with you. I'm divorced. The car suddenly braked suddenly, and I jerked forward. Antonio Gunther's voice was hoarse. Are you divorced? My sister hooked her lips and smiled. Yes, I'm divorced. I can't go on. I want to have a new beginning. Antonio Gunther looked at her for a long time, and the two of them looked like they were acting in a TV series, and I had to interrupt. What are you waiting for? Why don't you leave? Along the way, there was an undercurrent in the car, and I finally arrived at the bridal shop. I tried on my first wedding dress. When I came out of the fitting room, Antonio Gunther was still talking to his sister, and didn't notice me until the shopping guide complimented me, and he turned his head to look at me. I looked him in the eye with a smile on my face. It's good looking, that's it. I clenched my fist, that's it. My sister stroked her hair and said, please, you're too perfunctory, try something else. Unexpectedly, at this time, my sister's ex-husband Vincent Strong suddenly broke in. Vincent Strong grabbed his sister's wrist, and glared at her angrily. How the do you dare to trick me into signing a divorce agreement, when I was drunk last night? The sister hid behind Antonio Gunther at once. You signed it yourself, don't pester me. Antonio Gunther rushed over and punched him twice. It's all divorced. Why do you dare to pester her anymore? It's okay to die far away. The brother-in-law was knocked to the ground by him, but I bumped into me wearing high heels behind me, and I fell to the ground with an unstable center of gravity, and my foot twisted and stabbed. Antonio Gunther grabbed Vincent Strong by the collar, and told him to get out. When he came in, he immediately ran to his sister's side. Sister, are you okay? The shopping guide helped me stand up with a complicated expression. Antonio Gunther, Judith Jewel seems to have sprained his foot. That's when he came to see me. But in the next second, my sister fainted. Without hesitation, he turned to his sister, picked her up, and said, Judith Jewel, I'll take your sister to the hospital first, and you try it yourself. Okay, you have to remember to come back. My feet hurt a little, but I felt fine when I stood up, and I was able to walk. The shopping guide asked me with a complicated look, Judith Jewel, should we try on other wedding dresses? No need. I'll talk about it later when I have a chance. Sure enough, Antonio Gunther didn't come to the bridal shop to see me all day. He told me to go home and rest first, and said that my sister is now very weak and needs to be hospitalized, and he is taking care of her in the hospital. In the dead of night, I took apart my phone case, and pulled out a photo. Samson Raylan, do you see, I'm wearing my wedding dress today? However, all that answered me was the endless night. The next day, I drove alone to a cemetery in the suburbs. In front of the tombstone of Samson Raylan, a couple and a young boy stand. I was a little surprised. Who are you? When the husband and wife saw me, they were very excited. Samson Raylan is our benefactor. You should be our benefactor's girlfriend, right? I nodded blankly. Your boyfriend donated his cornea to my son back then. I really don't know how to thank his relatives. You can accept this bank card. My heart was shocked, and I looked down at the little boy, with big eyes in front of me, and my eyes were full of tears. Little friend, your name is Antonio Gunther. The little boy nodded. Yes, sister, my name is Antonio Gunther. It turns out that I was wrong all along. I'm looking for the wrong person, and the one with Samson Raylan's eyes has never been the Antonio Gunther I've always known. The husband and wife were still talking, but I couldn't seem to hear anything. I smiled and stroked the little boy's head. Antonio Gunther, it's nice to meet you. You have to grow up well. The little boy nodded, looked up and asked me, Sister, what kind of person is the big brother? He's a cool and gentle guy, who beats me up. The little boy handed me the umbrella in his hand. Sister, don't be sad. This umbrella is given to you, and the eldest brother will definitely protect you in heaven. I touched his head. Thank you. I confiscated my bank card, and when they left, I slowly crouched down and stroked the photo on the tombstone. Brother Samson Raylan, are you going to blame me for recognizing the wrong person? The Antonio Gunther I found wasn't the Antonio Gunther I was looking for. He was just an inconsequential person. I was thinking about how to get to know him, but he approached me first. so I stayed with him. Every time I look him in the eye, I show him the best side. But when he closed his eyes, I didn't even have the strength to laugh. At this moment, the obsession that has been going on for so long has disappeared in an instant. Antonio Gunther called me. I hung up without even thinking about it. The wind was hunting in my ears, and the rain was low. The silhouette of the man on the tombstone is cold, his dark eyelashes are soft and drooping, and his eyes are gentle like water. Here's a picture I took of him. When I was shooting, I never thought it would be black and white and stick to the cold tombstones. I whispered to him, Samson Raelian, when are you going to show me your suit? Did you say this was a dream? Would you wake up the next day, and you would come back to life? If you can hear me, let the rain stop falling, okay? At this time, the raindrops suddenly became smaller. The crackling sound on the surface of the umbrella slowly faded away. The rain really stopped. The wind in the distance ruffled my hair. It also dried the tears in the corners of my eyes, really gentle and gentle. The strands of hair caressed my cheek, as if he was caressing my face. Don't cry, I'm always there for you. I suddenly remembered the summer when I was 17. I had a fight with my sister that day, and she took things into my room without permission and took over my room. I fought with her, and my stepmother couldn't pull it away. When my dad came back, he slapped me indiscriminately and knocked my head to the side. Look at your sister's face. I slammed the door and ran to find Samson Raelian. At his tattoo parlor, I kept my head down. But he came over and rubbed my head. Why are your eyes so red? Who are you fighting with? No, I just fell. He came over with a medicine box, and with his long, tattooed fingers, he gently helped me apply the medicine. Whoever bullied you, you tell me. I couldn't hold back any longer, and threw myself into his arms and cried. Wet the black coat on his body. He usually kept a polite distance from me, but that time he didn't push me away, but patted me gently on the back. Finally I fell asleep in his arms. It was the warmest embrace since my mom left. I fell hopelessly in love with him. Crush, of course. He was cool and aloof on the outside, but he was actually gentler than anyone I knew. On the other side, my sister posted a circle of friends. She took a picture of a pot of salted bone porridge and chicken soup on a hospital bed, with the caption, "The feeling of having you always reassures me." In the picture, there is also a hand of Antonio Gunther. He stayed with her in the hospital for 2 days. I didn't want to worry about it anymore, so I went home silently and packed up my things, and prepared to leave. By the time I was almost packed, Antonio Gunther returned. In the past, when I met his eyes, I would always smile gently, but now I don't even bother to lift my head. Treat him like air. Then Antonio Gunther suddenly took my hand. Judith Jewel, let's talk about. What are you talking about? Have you decided on the wedding dress? Nope. Our wedding. Seeing that he was hesitant, I finished the rest of the words for him. Okay, let's not get married. Let's cancel it. Mine was so neat that he was stunned. Cancellation. I didn't say I wouldn't get married. I said I wanted to say if I could postpone it for a week or something. If you didn't say it, then I'll say it. There's no need to postpone it. Don't get married this time. You're good and I'm good. With that, I walked into the room and dragged out my suitcase to leave. He frowned and looked at my luggage. Why are you still packing? Don't pretend, I said with a smile. First love is really lethal. I can really understand you. Go find your good sister. His pupils shook. Did you see my answer on the internet? Well, I see. It's well written. But I didn't write well. As if his soul had been drained of him, he opened his mouth and did not speak, and then bowed his head with a guilty face as I watched. I'm sorry. I don't know what to say. I really can't forget your sister. You know, she was my first love, and the first person I loved to the core. But unfortunately she thought I was young and immature at the time. Since you know it, I didn't want to hear him talk, so I interrupted. Then she is divorced now. You can go to her and renew the relationship. I agree. I didn't bother to tell him. Daphne Layton didn't think he was young, but that he didn't have any money at home. He's luckier than me. At least his first love is still alive. With that, I dragged my suitcase out of the house. Antonio Gunther didn't catch up, as I had hoped. It's a problem if you catch up. It was already dark. I pulled my suitcase and walked out of the entrance of the complex. Judith Jewel, come here. My heart shook, and I looked up. Samson Raelian stood under the tree. My nose itched for a moment, and I couldn't help but quicken my pace and walk towards him, Brother Samson Raelian. Under the light street lights, the man wears a thin black jacket, his fingertips burn a half-lit cigarette, and behind him is a dazzling dazzle of the city's neon. He hooked his lips and smiled. If I ask you to come, you will come. Are you afraid that I will abduct you? I'm not afraid. You take me away. Give me the suitcase. But at this moment, a car whizzed by, and Samson Raelian's figure was swept away in an instant. My smile froze in the corners of my lips, and I looked around blankly, looking for him in despair. Samson Raelian. The fallen leaves of late autumn are drifting down. Where can you find his figure? It turned out to be just an illusion. I thought he was really coming to pick me up. At this time, a car stopped on the side of the road, and it was my sister, who had not been seen for a few days, who came down, and she looked a lot more ruddy. When she saw me crying, she came over with a surprised face. Yo, crying so sadly. What's wrong with you? The little couple is about to get married, and it's still awkward. It can't be because of me, right? I turned my back and wiped the corners of my eyes. Don't think too much. How is your body? I'm in good health, thanks to my brother-in-law's careful care these days, cooking me all kinds of nutritious meals. You are really blessed after marrying him. I nodded. Well, I've got you covered. Her face changed. What do you mean? Knowing that I just got divorced and deliberately stimulated me. Don't think too much. You are his first love. He loves you to death. You guys hurry up and be together. The most important thing I should do at this moment is to make it clear, lest I be forced to get involved in their sadomasochistic relationship. I waved at the taxi coming in the distance. Seriously, Judith Jewel, you don't have to be sarcastic about me, she suddenly shouted behind me. I obeyed, and she called me sarcasm. I don't need you to give me any blessings. You know, I'll just stand there and Antonio Gunther and he'll love me, and I won't have to do anything. I glanced at her faintly. That sister, I wish you a happy second marriage in advance. After that, I smiled at her and got into the taxi. She punched the cotton, leaving her speechless. The scenery outside the car window keeps receding, and the light and shadow are intertwined. The clock in the opposite direction is playing in the taxi. The driver may have seen that I was not in the right mood, and took the initiative to talk to me. Girl, I've heard that by listening to the bell in the opposite direction 1,000 times, you can go back in time. Yes, master. You also believe this? We people, living in this world, we have to believe something, so that we can have the strength to support us to live. Don't believe you try. Okay, listen to it right away, when you get home. But actually, I've heard this song almost 2,000 times, more than anyone else. I want to go back in time, to that plane where Samson Raelian was there, back to the first encounter with him. At that time, after my stepmother came to my house, it was as if I had become an outsider, and after school, I would rather wander outside than go back. That's when I wandered around and stumbled into Samson Raelian's tattoo parlor, on a very secluded street corner called Old Port. There are bookshelves on both walls, filled with thick old books, old magazines, picture books, and a few small wooden round tables. At first, I thought this was a small bookstore, where you could study on your own. I found a place by the window and sat down, took out the workbook and did the questions silently. It wasn't long before a strong man with a shirtless tattoo on his chest came out of it, and I stood up in fright. Don't be afraid, girl. Brother is a good man. When he saw me, the strong man covered his chest. Hey, get dressed when you're done. A clear, magnetic male voice sounded behind him. The next second, the big brother's head was covered by a flying t-shirt. The man who came out of the back was tall, with a black t-shirt covering his broad and straight shoulders, and he looked cold but eye-catching. I'm sorry, I didn't mean to bother. I'm going to disturb you on your business. I immediately packed up my books, and prepared to run away, but the man blocked my way. Hey, kid, did you misunderstand something? I'm not going to say it. You don't have to explain. The man chuckled. I'm a tattoo parlor here. What do you want? The moment I looked at him, my heart beat a little faster. Well, I'm thinking too much, I said, looking left and right, and said sincerely, that's right, boss, you can tattoo me too, the kind of pattern that makes me look a little less off. He swept me up and down, smiled and said, "I'm sorry, we don't accept minors." "All right then. Can I stay here for a while?" "Whatever you want." I didn't have much experience with people in society at that time, so I said, "My name is Judith Jewel." "Well, hello, Judith Jewel." He did it on purpose. I learned his name, Samson Raelian. Until later, I also learned that he was 7 years older than me, and that he was not only the owner of the Old Port Tattoo Parlor, but also held his own art exhibition, and laughed at himself as a half-hung artist. I can't help but laugh when I think about the first time I met him. After laughing, it hurt again. After parting ways with Antonio Gunther, I didn't go back to my dad's big villa. My dad would have said this and that when he found out. I didn't bother to explain the twists and turns to him. Daphne Layton couldn't wait to tell him anyway. After all, she thinks that her divorce is a scandal, and naturally she can't wait to cancel my marriage and publicize it, so that she will not be embarrassed alone. I went to my best friend's house, Eartha Martha. She was my college roommate and best friend. When we met, Eartha Martha gave me a big hug. "Judith Jewel, have a good rest tonight. I'll take you to relax tomorrow. Let's not think about those sad things." "Okay, I'm fine. I just think it's been a waste of my time in the past 2 years. It turns out that I've always found the wrong person. That's it." When Eartha Martha didn't know why I was with Antonio Gunther, she felt that Antonio Gunther didn't love me much. He was always hot and cold to me, and he didn't care for me as a boyfriend. But I didn't love Antonio Gunther much either. I've always loved Samson Raelian. I wish he could use those eyes to look at me more. Then I feel like he's still watching me by my side, and I'm better to think about it. What a madman. The next night, Eartha Martha took me to the bar at her house. The lights are bright, the light and shadow are changing, and the music voices and the crisp collision of glasses are mixed together. Samson Raelian wasn't very willing to let me drink. I've always listened to him, and in the years since he left, I haven't drunk much, but now I want to take a drink. That evening gave me a taste of the sweetness of hallucinations. Not long after, someone behind me grabbed my wrist. "Judith Jewel, stop drinking." Turning my head, there was Antonio Gunther standing behind me, looking at me with a frown. My expression faded, and I withdrew my hand and asked him, "Does this have anything to do with you?" "Judith Jewel, I know you're upset to see what I answered online, but you don't have to come here to get drunk, do you?" The more I listened, the more annoyed I became, and I had no patience with him now. "It's not you who cares what I do. Didn't I fulfill you and your first love? Don't bother me." His eyes widened in disbelief. I had always spoken softly to him, let alone swearing, as he had seen it before, but that gentleness was never for him. I just want Samson Raelian's eyes to see that I am gentle, that I am living well, that I am happy. "Don't drink it. Look at you now." Antonio Gunther snatched my glass, and slammed it on the table. "It's not like you at all." Eartha Martha squeezed off the dance floor, standing between me and Antonio Gunther. At this time, Daphne Layton also came over, and he grabbed Antonio Gunther's arm. "Antonio Gunther, what are you worried about? Judith Jewel High School is mixed with social people. The amount of alcohol is very good." I laughed, but didn't deny it. "Yes," Antonio Gunther sighed. "Judith Jewel, if there is anything we can say when we go home and make it clear, there is no need to be so stiff." I said, "I won't be going back to that place. I wish you happiness." Eartha Martha continued, "Antonio Gunther, isn't your first love in your arms? What are you still doing with Judith Jewel? She wishes you two to fulfill the two of you. I also hope that you will be locked up 100 years together, and an early birth of a precious son." "You didn't ask me to talk to Judith Jewel." My sister grabbed the conversation. "He came here to play with me, and when he saw your depraved appearance, he just cared about it by the way, and it didn't matter if you didn't appreciate it." As she spoke, she tried to read the pain from my expression, but there was only indifference in my eyes. "I don't need anyone's attention." My sister helped her forehead. "Antonio Gunther, my head hurts. The music here makes me have a headache." Antonio Gunther was so distressed that she couldn't take care of me anymore. "My sister is in good health for a short time. I'll send her back first, and we'll talk later." Looking at their backs, Eartha Martha said, "It's really, I guess I thought you loved him, and came here to get drunk." And your conscience didn't go away. I patted Eartha Martha on the shoulder. It's not a big problem. I don't have any actual feelings for him. It's just the wrong person. Have you ever liked him? Not at all. At this time, the young girl next to her answered the phone, and she sneered at the other end of the phone. Okay, I know. I'll go back early. Why are you always worried about me? I looked at her and suddenly remembered the vacation of my junior year. I accompanied Eartha Martha, who had her birthday, to her bar and accidentally got drunk. I was picked up by Samson Raelian. He carried me into the car, then carried me home, and kissed me on the bed for a long time as if punishing. When I woke up the next day, I found my mouth red and swollen and I asked him what was wrong with my mouth. Samson Raelian fooled me badly. It's not that you drink alcohol. You're allergic. I don't believe it. Don't think I didn't know it was you. You savage man. He laughed. Am I savage? I pounded his chest, but he cut both hands behind his back and hugged him into his arms. Savage. Who made you drink so much? Do you know how dangerous it is if I don't pick you up? That's Eartha Martha's bar. How can it be dangerous? As soon as I finished speaking, he grabbed my chin with one hand and kissed it. Don't drink until I'm with you. Someone knocked me on the shoulder, and I suddenly woke up from my memories. He's gone again. Eartha Martha asked me worriedly. Judith Jewel, are you all right? Oh, I'm fine. I just thought about the past. It's been so long. Don't you have to look forward? I clinked my glass to her. Ha ha, I've been looking forward a long time ago. Eartha Martha didn't speak, sighing. When she woke up in the middle of the night to drink water last night, she clearly saw her friend crying in her sleep. What do you want to eat for your birthday? I'll invite you to rub it off. I lowered my eyes. I don't have a birthday. I popped out of a rock. It wasn't long before my dad called. As he gets older, his temper is not as hot as before, and he is quite soft-spoken. Judith Jewel, what kind of conflict are you having with Antonio Gunther? You didn't answer Antonio Gunther's phone calls, and he said that he was going to cancel the wedding. Didn't he say that he would do it next week? Daphne Layton should have told you. Antonio Gunther and I are not married. Not over. We've sent out invitations, and the hotel has been arranged. So how can you say cancel it? Isn't it easy to change the bride to Daphne Layton's name? After all, he approached me to become a family with Daphne Layton, and to protect her in the name of his family. My dad's tone became a little angry. Antonio Gunther, what's going on? I didn't think Antonio Gunther was right next to my dad. Uncle, that's not the case. I was going to get married to Judith Jewel, but we had some problems. My sister's voice suddenly interjected. It's me who is bad. Antonio Gunther is my ex-boyfriend. He hasn't let me go, and it just so happens that I am divorced again. You're just fooling around. How can you do this to Judith Jewel? Antonio Gunther's voice was much firmer. I'm sorry, Uncle. I can compensate Judith Jewel in other ways. I hope you can do the same. I was relieved to hear him say this. My dad said, whatever you want. I'm not going to go then. At this time, my sister said, Dad, the villa in the suburbs before you. Don't call me Dad. I've never recognized you as my daughter, and I've always had only one daughter, Judith Jewel. I heard the sound of the cup falling to the ground, and as soon as he said that his temper had improved, he would be grumpy again. My dad was angry, and it turned out to be because of me. I was somewhat moved by the inopportune moment. My stepmother was addicted to gambling in the first 2 years and lost a lot of money, and my dad's relationship with her was long gone. Not to mention that Daphne Layton was not her biological daughter in the first place. But then my dad said, don't forget the name of Judith Jewel, when I bought that villa 4 years ago. Dad, don't be angry. They're a match made in heaven. My dad's voice softened. Daughter, where are you? Dad is looking for you. No, I'm fine now. Don't worry about me. After saying that, I hung up the phone. Soon, Antonio Gunther's wedding partner was changed to his sister Daphne Layton. Gossipy relatives messaged me and asked me what was going on. I always replied, don't ask. Ask is that they are each other's true love. I don't know what my dad told them later. They all said they wouldn't go to the wedding. I spend my days at Eartha Martha's house painting. One day she came home from work and asked, have you been in contact with Antonio Gunther? Nope. Then you don't know. Antonio Gunther has been drinking in our bar, every day these days. And it seems to be worse than the last time he proposed to you. He's so happy that he can marry his first love. It's too late for me to envy. I'm afraid not. I heard him call your name. Eartha Martha ran to Antonio Gunther's answer. I found out that he updated a paragraph in that answer yesterday. My fiancé saw my answer, and said that she would not get married, and that she would fulfill me and her sister. Actually, I felt a little guilty at first, but then there was excitement, a surprise, that I could finally be with the sister I had been thinking about. But within a few days I found out, after so many years, I always feel that my sister seems to be different from the one I knew before. She used to be so understanding in my impression, and now she says bad things about my fiancé in my ear every day. How do you look and how snarky. But the more she said that my fiancé was bad, the more she reminded me that she was so nice to me. What the hell is wrong with me? Shouldn't I be happy? Netizens have already scolded him to the point of blood. It's a good thing your fiancé found out early, and didn't let you harm her. The novel shines into reality. It turns out that there is really such a cheap man. And sure enough, the man's words can't be believed. What you can't get is always in turmoil. It's the first love that got it, and it's become a grain of rice again. Right. None of this has anything to do with me, and I don't understand what Antonio Gunther is thinking, and I don't want to understand what these haves and don't have. I just hope we don't bother each other, because I won't give him a single look. However, at night, there was a sudden strange call on the mobile phone. Judith Jewell, it's me. Can we meet? I'm sorry, we don't have to make any contact. Antonio Gunther, can I talk to you on the phone? The main thing is that I'm quite struggling right now. I don't know what's wrong with me. I thought I'd be happy to marry her. I'm sorry. I'm not an emotional blogger. If you can't solve your emotional problems, you can go find someone else. Then go back to the old street, where the old port is located. The neighborhood has changed, and there are many shops around that I haven't seen before. I walked around the neighborhood and just didn't dare to set foot in that street. I'm afraid that memories will drown me like a tidal wave. I took some pictures, posted a circle of friends, the first time I met you here. I can remember it for the rest of my life. When I was 16 years old, not long after, Antonio Gunther actually commented on my circle of friends. How did you know I lived in this area when I was in high school? Me, I don't know. It's just a coincidence. His contact details were then deleted. I had already graduated from college when Antonio Gunther was a graduate and had never learned about his distant past. Nor was I interested. If I'm not mistaken, tomorrow is the day of his wedding with his sister. I actually came here to comment on my circle of friends. There's really enough to be idle. Every corner of the road to the old port triggers memories for me. Even the gray-black street lamp at the intersection has fragments of memories with him. I've always had someone come and clean the old port on a regular basis, and it's kept as it is. In the winter after he left, I sat on the couch I bought with him, cried all night long, went to bed when I was tired of crying, and lived my life in a state of confusion. Hopefully, when I wake up, it's all a nightmare. He would still hold me in his arms. At this moment, I was standing at the corner of the street, and I didn't walk in. At this moment, someone behind me suddenly called my name. Judith Jewell. Antonio Gunther panted behind me. I've finally found you. I frowned. How did you end up here? I saw it from your circle of friends. I didn't expect it. I didn't expect you to start paying attention to me when you were in high school. When I took the oath just now, I completely woke up. The person I like is you. Can you go back with me now to get married? I'll prove my love to you in the future. I laughed. I follow you. You won't think too much about it. I used to live around here. And the first time you met, didn't you mean you met me here? No, I've never loved you. And I'm only with you because, at this time, there was a noisy sound of footsteps behind him. My sister's veil is crooked, and she looks very embarrassed barefoot. Antonio Gunther, I'm divorced for you. Why did you leave me to find her? Sister, your ex-husband told me last night that you bragged in front of your friends that you thought I was poor and dumped me, and I still had a dead heart on you, so I knew that you didn't have any so-called bitterness in dumping me. That's not the case. You also know my ex-husband, and you believe what people like him say. He's sending the video, and that's you. My sister's face lost its blood. I coldly folded my arms and watched the far scene in front of me. Antonio Gunther looked at me after speaking. Judith Jewel, forgive me this time. Okay, I said to Antonio Gunther. Well, give me your phone. He immediately pulled out his phone. Don't worry, I've deleted that answer. It doesn't matter if you delete your answer. I just want to tell you that the most praised answer under that question was written by me. So take a good look at it, yourself. The best one. HMM. Antonio Gunther eagerly took the phone and browsed. His pupils slowly dilated. You mean to say that I was the one who received your dead boyfriend's cornea transplant, and you used me as a stand-in to fulfill his unfulfilled wish to be with me? How could it be? I was in a car accident, but I had a cornea transplant at all. You're lying to me, aren't you? I didn't lie to you. It's just that I found out a few days ago that I found the wrong person. No way. You're so gentle with me. He didn't seem to accept the facts, and wanted to come and hug me. I ducked. I shook my head and turned to walk forward, unlock the dusty, old port, and step inside. Light and dust are mixed together, and old photos posted on the walls come into view. That's a picture of me and Samson Raelian. Some of them were taken at home and played, and some of them were taken when he was traveling with me. And the man said that he didn't like to take pictures, but he still stood up consciously and put his hand on my shoulder when I said that he was taking a group photo. Photographs were also posted on the walls of the old port. Let everyone know that I exist. His hand was always on my shoulder, and his eyes were always gently on me. Although there are idle people behind him, I'm still fascinated by the pictures. She's been with this tattoo parlor owner since she was in high school, and it's not you that she loves at all, Daphne Layton said. You've been tricked by this woman. Antonio Gunther, hurry up and go back and marry me. Haven't you always been able to let me go? Antonio Gunther's eyes were split, and he looked at the pictures with bruises on his forehead, and muttered, so it's because of another man's. All along, I just calmly said, now I believe it. Right, let's go after reading it. Daphne Layton's voice was suddenly sharp. What kind of tattoo artist does this man say? But in fact he is a bastard. How can he be compared to Antonio Gunther? I walked over and used all my strength. He slapped her on the left and right. Get out of here with this foul mouth of yours. Daphne Layton tried to rush up, but was stopped by Antonio Gunther. You go out first. I'll talk to her alone. No wonder you are so nice and gentle to me, but you never let me touch you. It's all because of this man on the wall. So did you love me? I haven't loved it. Enough. Don't say it. Brother Samson Raelian hates people making a lot of noise in his shop. As I wrote in that answer, I never wanted to actually get a license with you. I just wanted Samson Raelian to see me in my wedding dress. I really don't care about the rest. I can't really marry Antonio Gunther in the first place. Let's get out. Finally, in the end, I drove them away. The farce has finally come to an end. It was eerily quiet, and the ticking of the clock could be heard clearly. The words that have been said and done here are clearly replaying before my eyes. Brother Samson Raelian, let's change to a sofa. This sofa is so earthy. Yes. So what color do you like? Sky blue. A little dirty. He said dirt, but he still brought me a sky blue sofa. Even though the color was incompatible with the dark decor of the old port, I moved all my luggage in, thinking about staying here for a while. A mutual friend of mine and Antonio Gunther told me that Antonio Gunther didn't go back after she ran away from the wedding, but Daphne Layton invited a lot of people before the wedding, which made more people see her jokes. Daphne Layton's ex-husband also came to make a fuss. The scene was chaotic. I don't want to care about any of these men. They don't have the slightest bit like my Samson Raelian. The weather was nice today and I curled up on the couch. I accidentally fell asleep. The curtains rise and fall in the wind, and the hour hand ticks on the wall. It was as if time had been turned back to the height of summer that year. It was as if I had found a treasure, and I no longer had to wander and run to the old port of Samson Raelian every day. With my homework book, my workbook, I lay on my stomach on the small table in his shop and wrote my homework. And I don't fit in with the artistic surroundings, but I don't care. There is a mix of people here. One time I went over, and a man teased, "You, this is Samson Raelian's little wife." No, come every day. The next second, Samson Raelian kicked the man's stool off. Didn't see anyone wearing a school uniform? Teasing me, I'll blow you out again. I hurriedly cooperated. Brother Samson Raelian, I'll help you bomb him together. Samson Raelian laughed and said, that's good. I was really happy at that time. Later, when I got into a fight with Daphne Layton, and was slapped by my dad, he found out, and Samson Raelian hugged me for the first time and comforted me. Not long after that, Daphne Layton and her domineering boyfriend in high school were taught by the people in society, and they couldn't stand up at all in school. She didn't deliberately lead people to disrupt my studies in front of me like before, and I didn't have to scold her at home anymore. I don't know exactly what happened, but you don't have to think about it. Samson Raelian must have helped me get ahead. Then one day, my sister's attitude towards me changed. I don't know what kind of medicine she sells in her gourd. I didn't expect her to secretly follow me to the old port. He deliberately held my arm as if he was close to me. Hey, can you ask your friend to help me get a unique tattoo at the base of my thigh? I pulled my arm out of her, and I didn't want to say anything about it. He doesn't accept minors here. But my sister couldn't wait to say, I have repeated a grade, and I am already an adult at the age of 18. Samson Raelian didn't speak, and coldly lifted his eyelids to look at her. If you say it, you won't be accepted if you are an adult. My sister refused to give up. I'll add money and triple the price. Right. Samson Raelian only said 3 words, get out. After saying that, he blasted her out of the door. At that moment, Samson Raelian exploded in my eyes. Daphne Layton deliberately said loudly, don't think I didn't know you slept with Judith Jewell. You were so nice to her. The next second, she was slapped hard. It's Samson Raelian's sister. It's inconvenient for my brother to beat women. I'll do it. Her sister also knew me, and although she didn't show up often, she was very nice to me. Daphne Layton slipped away with her tail between her legs. One time I was so tired that I fell asleep on my desk while I was doing a problem. When I woke up, I was covered with Samson Raelian's coat and it was dark. He cooked me a bowl of noodles, pinching the edge of the bowl with his right hand. The green tendons rose slightly, and the tattoos on his cold white skin looked very sexy. It smells so good. Thank you, brother Samson Raelian. Eat noodles and go home after eating. When I was next to him, he was drawing next to him, and the light was dim, and I quietly turned my head to look at his side face. Just looking at it, my heart is a deer. After eating, I asked him, can I sleep with you all night? He narrowed his eyes dangerously. I can pay. After my dad hit me that day, he didn't say anything. I don't know if it was guilt or what, and gave me a lot of money in the card. I haven't gone downstairs to eat with their family for days. You can't pay for it. I send you this money. He ruthlessly rejected me. I'm not leaving. Last time I had a fight with my sister, I could have slept at your house for one night. Why not this time? Last time it was a special situation. He brought me up. You little girl, you can't get into the habit of staying overnight at a strange man's house. Don't you know? In the end, he sent me home. Before leaving, he patted me on the head and said, don't worry, if she still bullies you, tell me. When I went up to the community, I found that he was still downstairs in the community. The slender body is caged in the dark. The fingertips are bright and dark, and the loneliness is indescribable. I secretly took a picture of him. From time to time, I turn it out and look at silly music. The reason why Daphne Layton was so kind not to tell my dad that I often went to Samson Raelian was because she thought Samson Raelian would spoil me. But Samson Raelian didn't give me a chance to be bad. On my 18th birthday in the 3rd year of high school, he also gave me a 5-year college entrance examination, and a 3-year simulation, which was very incomprehensible. Later, due to the heavy workload of my studies, I went to his store less often. I'll go back after a big exam. I found that there were so many trendy beauties in the tattoo parlor, and I suddenly regretted that I didn't change my clothes and came back. It turned out that after a certain blogger came to visit the store, many people came to his store. Some people really want to get tattoos. A lot of it is because he is so cool that he can't take his eyes off it when he wears the simplest black tee. When they saw me, the others said, this is Sister Samson Raelian. I've never hated the word sister so much like at that moment. Where's brother Samson Raelian? Samson Raelian came out, his hair growing a little longer and bits covering the tails of his beautiful eyebrows. The thin eyelids were raised, and he squinted at me. hooked his lips and smiled, and the ruffian immediately came out. You, who is this? Judith Jewell, he said. I thought the university bully had forgotten about me. Let's see how you're doing. I didn't expect it to be so moisturized. Yes, he didn't deny it. My heart was itching with anger. When I was in the store, a few beautiful women curiously came to talk to me. You're his sister. Hey, can you help me get your brother's wishet? If you succeed, I'll send you 100 red envelopes. I said in a humble heart. No, my brother said that he would not fall in love until he was 30 years old. They stopped a little, but they still had to flirt. The last one came running with a melancholy face. Your brother is too indifferent. Don't say a superfluous word. I tried to pretend I didn't care. He's usually gentle with me. That's no way. You're different. He told us that you're his sister. I'm not his sister. But when I turned my head, I saw Samson Raylien standing behind me with a smirk, and I suddenly lost my words, and immediately pretended to be doing the question, the tip of my pen scratching the paper. My heart was flustered and I didn't dare to look up. He stopped next to me. Hey, what math formulas are you writing on scratch paper for writing an English workbook? I bluffed. You care about me. The night was late, and the old port became quiet, and the wind chimes shook softly, and the crisp sound seemed to knock on my heart. The glass turned into a mirror, and I didn't dare to look at him blatantly, so I could only pretend to look at the scenery outside, and secretly look at him in the mirror. When the guests were gone, I took a deep breath and asked him, Samson Raylien, may I ask you a question? You ask. What kind of girl do you like? I haven't thought much of this. Just look at the right eye. I plucked up the courage to stare into his eyes, blushing and cheeky to look at him, and he raised his eyebrows slightly, looking back at me playfully, and the ambiguity burned the roots of my ears. Now what do you think? Is there a little bit of eye contact with me? Samson Raylien laughed in an instant. It's not that you're a high school student. You know what love is. I understand. I don't understand. Then who goes around telling people that I don't fall in love until I'm 30? It's not because I'm afraid of you. I whispered the more I spoke. I'm afraid you'll be snatched away. Don't like me. If you don't learn your habits, don't come in the future. I only held back one sentence for a long time. You old-fashioned. If you don't come, you won't come. And I'll really come in the future. I angrily packed up my books, and put them in my bag, and I tried my best to endure them, but the tears still fell very unhappily. Samson Raylien had a rare look of panic on his face, and he pulled a tissue to wipe my tears. Ancestor, don't cry. These things will be okay when you finish the college entrance examination. With his words, I was busy with the college entrance examination, and I was full of motivation every day. When I got the letter from the university of my choice, I couldn't wait to find him. By the time he was done, night had fallen. At the barbecue on the rooftop of his house, Samson Raylien celebrated me, but I was still not allowed to drink. But I had to drink, and I drank half a can of beer just to give myself courage. Then he pretended to be drunk and forcibly confessed to him a second time. Samson Raylien, if you don't be my boyfriend again, I will be abducted by other boys when I go to college. Are you afraid? He extinguished the cigarette as I approached. His neck tilted back. You dare to try it? Then what the hell do you want to please me? He grabbed my wrist and after a bout of vertigo, I sat on the man's lap and my heart was pounding. Have you figured it out? You're going to college in the future, and you're willing to be 108,000 miles away from your boyfriend. I can't even see each other. I've had a crush on him for so long. How can you not think clearly? I don't care. I just want you. I like you. He chuckled against my shoulder and pinched my earlobe with his fingertips. My ears are so red. It's so cute. I was so embarrassed. Don't say this. You promise? Samson Raylien leaned in and kissed me on the lips. I promise you. That day's kiss. That day's starlight. I can remember it for the rest of my life. We had our first group photo. The summer vacation after my junior year of high school was the happiest day for me. We watched the sunset in the old port, went to the small shop next door to find the discs of old movies, and drove to the nearby beach, where he chased the running waves on my back. Sweet Watermelon, Never Tired Cicada, and The Gentle Hymn, who composed my most gorgeous summer. After I was ready to go to college, I often took the bus back to City C to see his enlightenment. and it was only 2 hours anyway, but I really found out, when I was in love, I don't need to go back at all. Samson Raylien would come to me by car. We could see each other several times a month, and he was never absent when it mattered. I love his arms so much. So warm, so safe. Sometimes he would take me on a long vacation, or during the winter and summer vacations, to travel to the places I wanted to go. When my friends first saw him, they all said that he looked like a scumbag, but a few years passed. Their evaluation of him became that of a peerless good man. Once, when I was sick and went to the hospital in the middle of the night, he drove to the hospital overnight to look for me, and when he arrived the next day, his eyes were bloodshot and he stayed by my side, hold my hand tightly. That's when my dad found out about me and him. At first, my dad saw the tattoos on his hands, coupled with his unique temperament, and secretly taught me a lesson. But after Samson Raylien talked to him alone, my dad didn't say anything against it. When I left, he even said sorry to me as usual, and that my puberty was his indiscriminate slap in the face. He said that he was afraid that his stepmother would target me at home, and that slap was made for them to see, so that I should not hold a grudge against him. Samson Raylien had a beautiful bow tattooed on his left chest, wrapped around my English name. Mine was a beautiful arrow, designed by his own hands, which means that I shot him in the heart. My Samson Raylien is the best, but that's what I hate the most. It would be nice if I didn't have that. My senior year's birthday, it wasn't a weekend, and I was going to do an internship, but Samson Raylien had already driven all the way from City C, and I saw him downstairs in the dormitory when I got dressed, and went downstairs in the morning. Downstairs in the dormitory early winter morning, Samson Raylien was waiting for me. The campus has snowed, and the road surface is covered with sparse pieces of snow. The man was wearing a black coat, and he was wearing a white towel that I had knitted, and I had the word Judith embroidered at the end. When he saw me, a gentle smile spread across his indifferent face. He kissed me on the forehead. He stuffed me with the hot breakfast in his arms. Good boy. Don't be distracted by today's internship. He said that in the afternoon I would take me to dinner after class and help me celebrate my birthday. I was very excited and energetic all day, and at the same time, I even fished and secretly met Samson Raylien from time to time. He told my friends to celebrate with me. He paid for everything, and he could play as much as I wanted, as long as I was happy. Before I got off work, I received a message from Samson Raylien. I'll go to the cake shop to get the cake, and you wait for me downstairs in the company. But I waited left and right, and never waited for him. Winter nights fall quickly. The street lights on the street came on one by one, and I warmed my palm, and he didn't reply when I messaged him. Isn't the cake ready yet? Which cake shop are you in? Send me the location, and I'll look for you. There was no reply for a long time. I had to search for the nearest cake shop, and follow the directions on the map. However, I heard from a pedestrian on the road, who was in the opposite direction of me, that there seemed to be a serious car accident nearby. The drunk driver ran a red light, and lost control of the pedestrians on the side of the road, and then crashed into a cake shop, shattering the glass. I was uneasy to the extreme. After calling him, there was no answer. By the time I arrived, a cordon had already been set up at the scene, and I rushed over to see a white scarf stained with blood, which was exactly the one I weaved. The word Judith embroidered on it was blurred. The cake cream was broken all over the floor, and I didn't have time to clean up, and at that moment my heart seemed to be smashed. The world is spinning. Samson Raylien was picked up by ambulance, and I stumbled to the police on the side of the road to check the hospital, but my vision began to blur. First People's Hospital. Okay, I'll go right away. In a taxi. At this time, the phone rang, and it was Samson Raylien calling. I trembled several times before I answered. Samson Raylien, how are you? His hoarse and gentle voice came slowly. The scarf you gave me is gone. I cried. In my arms. It's in my arms. Obediently. I'm fine. Don't cry your nose. You'll have a headache after crying for a long time. Remember to eat breakfast. And Judith Jewel, happy birthday. I'll be at the hospital in a moment. I want to hear you tell me in person. What you say now doesn't count. But in the end, these 3 sentences became the last 3 sentences I heard him say. I love the man I love the most. Passed away on my birthday. Samson Raylien. Samson Raylien. Samson Raylien. No matter how many times I called his name, I never heard any response again. Since then, all the voices I have heard from him have been voice messages in the chat history that I am reluctant to delete. I don't know how I got through those days. All I know is that every day after he left, my world was colorless. I've never hated myself so much. If I hadn't known him, if I hadn't been in a relationship with him, if he hadn't come to celebrate my birthday, he wouldn't have had this accident. Not to die. I don't want to have a birthday again. I just want him to be safe. Amazing encounter in the middle of summer that year. It ended with a winter funeral. It was as if a piece of my heart had been ripped out of my heart. And his last New Year, we made a wish by the river. I asked him, "What New Year's wish did you make?" The first one, "I want to see you in your wedding dress in my lifetime. Is my New Year's wish this year?" The second, Samson Raylien, promised to love Judith Jewell for the rest of his life. Wear a wedding dress. I will definitely wear it to you in the future. You can rest assured. However, I don't think I've ever seen you in a suit, so I'd love to see it. Aren't you graduating next year? I'll come to see you in a suit, and take graduation photos with you to attend the graduation ceremony. Okay, but in the end, I didn't wait, and he didn't see it. How I wish it was all just a dream. Brother Samson Raylien, I haven't had a birthday since you left, and I hate it. The cake you ordered for me also included a small envelope with a card inside. I've never been willing to open it. I deceived myself into thinking that as long as I don't take it apart and look at it, it means that you can still wish me a happy birthday, and I haven't left yet. Time passed, and I opened the envelope. Take out that yellow card. Happy 22nd birthday, hostess. I'll tell you something. I'm going to settle in City C, and I'm looking at the storefront, so you can look for a job here with peace of mind. Samson Raylien loves you. I whispered into the air. I love you too. The wind chimes suddenly sounded crisply, as if in response. I've blocked all of Antonio Gunther's contact information. He came to me in the old port and asked me if we could both let go of the past and start over. I've only said one word: fuck you down. After saying that, I turned and entered the door, and I was going to be trapped forever in my memories, trapped in the world with Samson Raylien, and never come out. He wanted to follow up again, but a strong wind blew by, and the door of the old port slammed shut, turning him away. Autumn is already in full swing, and a fallen leaf is floating outside the window. Slowly, it landed next to the last drawer of the back bookshelf. In order to keep them as they were as much as possible, I rarely touched them, and looking at the fallen leaves that seemed to be guided, I opened the drawer. Inside was a small box. Inside was a diamond ring. His sister told me that Samson Raylien had originally planned to propose to me the year I graduated. Postscript: I am a student in the neighborhood. Passing through Old Street, I found a tattoo parlor called Old Port. The hostess is a very beautiful woman with the surname Jewell. It's the kind of beautiful and mature sister I want to become. She has long black and thick hair, but her eyes are cold, and she keeps a light distance from others. On the photo wall, there is a photo of her with a handsome man. I saw her at the age of 18, on the rooftop. Her innocent face and green smile turned her head towards the handsome man beside her, his hand on her shoulder. I asked about her. Sister, is that your boyfriend? She stroked the ring on her hand, and said with a smile, it's my husband. The end.